Here we go, Rich, we're live. Hello, everybody. I'm Angie Callen, and this is No More Mondays, the podcast where we believe you can have a thriving career business and an amazing life on your terms. So I bring guests who not only prove that fact, but who have resources and advice to help you live and work brilliantly. For all of you listening to this via podcast feeds, I do want to remind you that we are now live every Monday morning at 10:15 Mountain, noon 15 Eastern via LinkedIn. So if you want the freshest off the presses version of this conversation, tune in live every Monday morning. And good morning to those of you who are. Thank you for those of you listening via feeds. We appreciate you. It is somehow the first Monday in August, y'all. And I'm still kind of not sure how we got here and wondering where June and July ran off to. However, I can tell you I'm very excited to have the one and only Rich, the HR Guy Salon on the show. Rich and I crossed paths here on LinkedIn a few months back and quickly realized how much we had in common, especially when he told me about the fact that he has a book and the first chapter is about making every Monday feel like a hot date. How's that for No More Mondays? He is one of the HR good guys out here working to change the culture of the workforce, change the culture of hiring. And without further ado, let's get him on stage. Rich, the HR Guy Salon, welcome to No More Mondays.
Thanks, Angie. It's great to be here. And before I forget, congratulations on your continued success, because this really is an appropriate show and appropriately timed, being every Monday.
Thank you, because this is a recent change. So until just a few weeks ago, for those of you that didn't realize this happened, we shifted from a pre-recorded, produced podcast that went live on the feeds on Wednesdays to a come to you first on LinkedIn on Monday morning, where my people are, and also helping you kick off the week so that Monday can feel like a hot date. So it's just kind of perfect that you and I are here together.
Yep. Great to be here.
And I appreciate the compliment. Thank you. I think you and I share a passion for wanting to help people live and work, especially more intentionally, less stressed, and just kind of, shifting the culture that we are in today, which brings me to the first topic I want to talk about. You are Rich, the HR guy, and I love that you kind of sit on both sides, right? So Rich does HR work. His consulting company is HR Sanity, by the way, which I think is genius, but also does coaching work. And so I love that you have a duality of the view. And I kind of want to lean into both sides of that coin. And I want to start with the HR side because it's a pain point. We know it's a pain point for employees who feel like they don't have support because of that typical company-driven motivation of the department. It's frustrating for HR to feel like they're kind of flailing, or there's too much attrition, or there's lack of engagement, or the list goes on. So I want to hear your hot take on what's happening in HR and your perspective on how we can improve it. Not a loaded question to start us off at all.
Sure. I've been blessed to be a human resources professional for about 25 years now, leading companies, Home Depot and Lowe's. Try to keep Circuit City afloat, but had to help wind it down. Dedicated myself to the Penske organization. So some terrific companies. And again, HR has been my chosen career path. I've been doing it for about 25 years. And many times we have rather large client groups. Those are groups of employees, supervisors, managers, directors, vice presidents. I know at one point in my career, I had 3,400 team members, under my direction. And then another time I had 2,300. And then I had 2,000. I've had 600 and 800. Once I had the luxury of only having 200 and the other 450. So it's a lot to juggle between the needs of the field, the needs of the frontline team members, making sure the supervisors getting what they need, the managers, and then there's always corporate details, compliance things that have to be done. So I can vouch HR has a lot to juggle, and it can be difficult to get a lot of face time with every supervisor and every frontline employee. The secret is when you do get FaceTime or phone time or virtual or Zoom time, make it count. Make the most of it. End the call by saying, What else can I do for you? And that's after you've made the person feel important, because that's a big part of our role in HR, make people feel important. So it is a juggling. But
And especially there's in the fun fact, I don't know if you and I ever talked about, when I was an engineer, Lowe's was my biggest client. I built like a dozen of their stores in the Northeast when they were going through a huge expansion during the pre-recession days. And I even got to go to like corporate headquarters. And that type of HR environment is the perfect thing to really drill into what you're talking about, because the level of individualization needed there is even more, I think, intense than in an environment where everybody's an office staff, right? There's a very broad range. Not only is it a large staff and a large company, but there's a very broad range of professionals, white collar, blue collar, hourly, managers, on the floor, customer service, corporate, right? It's a huge, diverse, mixed bag of client types. And so that individualization becomes even more important.
absolutely. If a store manager at Lowe's or a Home Depot, they often have a staff of 150 to 200 people. And customer facing, behind the scenes, like receiving, they have a lot to juggle. Or a distribution center manager who might have 200, may have 500, may have 900 team members, under his or her direction. And that may include a few engineers and inventory control team members, facility maintenance. Many businesses are incredibly complex, and it's a lot to juggle for leaders. That's why our number one charge in human resources, and I'm quick to remind my peers, the number one charge in every human resource department is to help the leaders become better leaders. That's it. It's that simple. It's not recruiting. It's not benefits. It's not compensation. Helping the leaders become better leaders. Because when leaders become better leaders, they provide better development. They help create a better work environment for everybody under their umbrella. So that's it. Not a lot of people don't often see that in HR, but developing our leaders. And I tell my client groups and my companies, look, for every extra dollar you have to spend in discretionary spending, spend 99 cents of it in leadership development. It'll be worth the investment.
And not to get on like a soapbox, but we're going to get on a soapbox, that it's the opposite. Like 1% is spent in that area. And a lot of times the focus goes towards, how can we give better benefits? Or how do we, get a new system to make onboarding even easier? When like the simplest thing is just to nurture from the top and create an environment where that can trickle down.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely, especially to the frontline supervisors, who often are promoted from the hourly frontline ranks because they're teamwork oriented. They take care of people. We promote them into a supervisor position, but often don't have a robust training and development program to make them a certified leader.
Yeah.
So the more we can help the supervisors, the better.
And I see this, we're talking about Lowe's, which is a, very diverse employer and employee landscape, as we've talked about. But this relates to all of you out there, whether you're a leader or whether you work under a leader, or whether you're at the very top and have the ability to influence. I see this is also very common in like a technical environment, right? I experienced this very early in my career. And I think that was maybe a seed that was planted 20 years ago to the work I'm doing today. But the same exact kind of pitfalls, in my opinion, happen in technical environments with technical people who also don't have natural leadership skills, but the environment tends to not necessarily proactively give them the training to support that. And so you end up with that real sticky middle management of somebody who is naturally an engineer, has that personality type, is used to diving into technical minutia, and doesn't know kind of organically how to take a step above that. And so that's where micromanagement comes from. So what we're talking about, in my opinion, kind of transcends any individual environment and tends to be very common anywhere where there's that transition of people as they move up a ladder.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what's one, because we're going to get to a very big advice segment on how to make Mondays feel like a hot date. But before we get that far, we're just keeping y'all in suspense. If somebody out there is in an HR or leadership position and you're in the position to influence this kind of, at this scale of an organization, what's one or two small things a company or a leader that has that kind of influence can do to help this learning and development culture?
Sure. Well, for one, it's very easy to fall into kind of a trap to focus on the frontline team members. Now, they're important, no question. They're rolling with their sleeves every day. They're getting dirty and they're doing a lot of manual work and they're going home sweaty. However, you really need to spend a lot of time on the supervisors and the managers. They need development. They need help. And they also need some love. They need to be reminded that the work they do is extremely important, because if the supervisors and the managers are not feeling the love, they're probably not passing down the love.
They ain't got no love to give.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
this is the middle management, first level management, whether it's in a line situation or, a more complex environment, to me is the trickiest place to be as a professional, because a lot of times you're left behind, right? You're trying to manage some level of individual contributor still. You're used to being an individual contributor and trying to figure out how to manage people at the same time. So they really need the most love.
Absolutely. The other piece of advice I give is it's very easy to make all the decisions. So if you're a manager of a 100-person unit, very, very easy to fall into the trap. It's just you'll make all the decisions because it's easier. You're following the path of least resistance. However, that doesn't help your team grow. So delegate decision-making responsibility to your team members. And I agree to those. I will say this to all the leaders listening out there: the best decision you ever make is the one that you delegate to one of your team members. Let them make the decision. What is the likelihood of that decision that they make going to bankrupt the company? Pretty small, huh? So again, delegate the decision-making authority to people that work for you. They will grow immensely.
That even got us a ticker, Rich. I'm getting up to speed on this StreamYard thing, y'all. So hey, watch out. But I just wrote an article for all of my business audience. So this is I'm gonna take what Rich just said and actually we're gonna keep it up there for a second because we're still talking about it and just pass it along to everybody, because even if you are an entrepreneur out there listening, delegating is a missed opportunity. We tend to hold on to things tight gripped. So do managers, especially if you are used to being more in the technical and having control. That's where micromanagement often comes in. We hold things so tight because we don't think anybody else can do it better than us. And because it often does take a little bit more time at first to train somebody and to pass work off. However, in the long run, everyone is better off for it. And now you're not holding on to so much stuff and also having resentful staff because you're not passing stuff down. Delegation is a very magical thing to embrace.
Absolutely.
So now and I think this is a perfect time to now flip to the other side of the coin and talk about if you are one of the employees, and maybe you're the manager, maybe you are one of the people working for a leader that sounds a little bit like they could use some learning and development. I want to hear a little bit more about your perspective on how we can create good environments for ourselves. How do we look at Mondays like they're a hot date? What can help us shift our mindset as employees? Tell me more.
So I would say it will take a lot to upset a leader. Oftentimes team members, they're hesitant to give the leaders feedback and suggestions for fear it might hurt their feelings because it didn't come from them. My suggestion is don't worry. Offer feedback, offer suggestions. You have an opportunity to make your boss better. You have a chance to make his or her boss better. So speak up. And what that will also do is kind of increase the level of transparency
Mhm.
in the division or within the company. The more transparent an organization, upwards and downwards, the better. It's just business. It's not rocket science. We're gonna
It
get
really is much more simple than I think we like to make
yeah,
it.
we're gonna get the work done through people and our compassion and our collaboration and our blood, sweat, and tears. But look, and some of the best ideas often come from the front lines.
Yeah. And I think the less, we tend to complicate that and add resistance to something that could otherwise naturally operate in a more streamlined way. And you're making me think of a conversation I had a few weeks ago here on No More Mondays with Carrie Siggins, who is the CEO of a company that has an ESOP. They're an employee-owned company where they really have like literally even into the structure of their business, embraced this idea of everyone has a voice. Transparency is a way of life. And the feedback loop is integrated into their culture in such a way that employees actually feel comfortable and empowered to go to a leader and say, hey, I see something, without fear of retribution, without fear of like fallout. And if you can create that environment as a leader, fantastic. But I also think even if that doesn't exist, you can take little pieces of it as an employee and find a way to approach that feedback loop, even if it doesn't already exist in the environment, right?
I agree. I think each of us have probably worked for a company during the balance of our career where secrecy is an unwritten core value, and they kept things very, very close to the vest. And why? Because if you dilute it, you lose power. If you're one of 7 people holding the cards, holding that piece of information, and you go tell 2 more people, all of a sudden 9 people have that information, and so their perception is their power has been diluted a little bit. Doesn't make a lot of sense. I agree, but it's true. What's the risk if you identify more stakeholders, in a decision or an analysis? Anyway, the more you can share with the team members, including operating performance at the unit level or the department level, the more that you can do that, you're making those people feel important. You're saying we trust you with this information, and we're also reminding you that you are a part of these results. Here's the work that you're doing. Here's how it fits into these company goals, company objectives. Again, make people feel important. Sorry to be over that point.
Well, and I think I'll give you a quick little shameless plug here because you literally wrote a book called Career Trust.
I did.
I have a hunch is a little bit about this topic.
It is. Career trust is sound advice and insights from me, which the HR guy. There's only 52 of them in the book, and each reads about 2.5 minutes. But it's inside for those people who are in career search or trying to get ahead, grow their career, but most importantly, go for career fulfillment. Go for fulfillment. Don't stop at engagement, because engagement and fulfillment are 2 different things. By the way,
Tell me more.
Career fulfillment eats employee engagement for breakfast. So employee engagement has been the biggest invention within human resources in the last 25 years. It was around 2002 that employee engagement really started to blossom. We morphed from employee satisfaction to employee engagement. And employee engagement, now there you can tie a metric to it by way of surveying. But employee engagement basically says, do you know what to do? Do you know that what the work that you're doing, how it fits in the company objectives? Do you have the resources to do your job? And do you have the ability? Are you willing to give some discretionary effort because of how you feel about your job? Mm-hmm. Career fulfillment, again, is like engagement on steroids. Career fulfillment is, does my work have meaning to me? Does it align with my career purpose? Am I helping others? is this the work I want to be doing? Is this the work that I've meant to do? So you can have engagement, and it looks like you're a pretty cheery employee, and okay, but you may not have fulfillment.
Yeah.
So my suggestion is don't go for engagement, go for fulfillment, because I calculated the average person works between 90,000 and 120,000 hours during the balance of the career.
Yep.
That's a lot of time.
We work more than we sleep. You do it more than anything else in your life. And the amount, the proportion of contribution to your overall well-being that it has is often overlooked.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Go for the gusto. The career is a terrible thing to waste. I'm living proof. I've been in HR for 25 years, and 15 of those years have overlapped as a career transition coach. And it follows my career purpose. My career purpose is to help people find the level of career fulfillment that they want. That's it. So, and I get to do that. Everything is very simple.
Yeah.
Everything I do as an HR leader, as an HR consultant, helping people move into consulting, business ownership, and employment, grow their career. Everything I do is aligned with my career purpose. And that's what I hope people will do, is identify your career purpose and don't give up, because too many people dedicate their career to moving stuff from the inbox to the outbox. Okay, I said it. Mindless work has got to go. We're better than that. Me, Angie, and every other worker in our great country.
And I think that you have permission and you deserve fulfillment. Because to me, what I would say, I love how you talked about engagement versus fulfillment, because engagement to me is the baseline of what you should be like, is the minimum of what you should be looking at in a job versus a fulfilling career. Because to me, engagement means at least you don't hate going to work, and you can contribute, and you can exist within the environment, with minimal toxicity, versus fulfillment, which is like you're flourishing, you're thriving, and really you're leveraging a purpose. And the purpose of our careers and our like individual purposes being weaved into our vocation is a common theme in every No More Mondays episode we've pretty much ever had, all 150 something, right? Values aligned, purpose driven careers are how we unlock the fulfillment piece. And Rich, you and I are like, are we just cut from the same cloth? Because my purpose is to essentially help others find theirs to reach their potential. So it's like, there's a very aligned kind of mission here. We approach it differently, which is the beautiful thing about purposes, is you can carry them out in different ways. But this idea that you don't have to anymore spend 30 years slaving away at a job you're not even engaged in so that you can live life at year 62 and a half.
Absolutely. It's important to take off the blinders, and frankly, leave them off. And while you're at it, if you haven't defined your career purpose, do it, find it, figure it out. Also, identify your life's purpose. And you might find that there's a parallel. For me, my life's purpose is to help people and make the world better. That's it. And I do that through my work at Rotary International today, and I as a volunteer. And after I retire, I'm going to be a wish granter for adults diagnosed with a terminal illness. That's who I am. And parallel to that is career, helping people find career fulfillment, because a career, again, is a terrible thing to waste.
Yeah. And too many of us do, is the thing. So you said it, you said the thing earlier. I'm going to say the thing. We still accept mediocrity in our careers today because of golden handcuffs, because we think it's how we have to be, because it's how future or past generations set expectations, all these things that you are permitted to question. and permitted to explore, because if I hadn't, I sure as hell wouldn't be here. And I think part of figuring out your purpose is the curiosity that we need to bring to our careers, and within a reasonable amount of risk, not just playing in the safer comfort zone, because you're likely not going to find it there. But if you step out of that and you're curious, you'll find it.
You know, it's funny, you mentioned parallel between you and I earlier. Coincidental. I am unleashing your career. The first chapter is make every Monday feel like a hot date. And then I met Angie later. And I could have chosen any of the chapters to make it the first chapter, but I made that the first chapter in the book. Career Trust, my first book, published over 2 years ago. The first chapter is Stop Accepting the Unacceptable. A testament what you just said. It's let's stop. Let's go for the gusto.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's get it done.
All right, so let's get it done. How do we make Mondays feel like a hot date? I love practical, tactical, actionable advice, as I know you do, because I think if there is somebody on this planet who could go toe to toe with as many never-ending opinions about everything as me, it's Rich, the HR Guy Salon. So, and they're in his books, so luckily you can read them. But I love to give everybody like 3 takeaways. So 1, 2, 3. What are your 3 best tips on how to make Monday feel like a hot date?
So number 1, finish your work on Friday. Thursdays and Fridays, you gotta crush it. Get your work done. So there's you have fewer things to worry about over the weekend. Then on Monday morning, do not schedule Monday morning meetings. Do your best to make Monday your private planning time. Throughout the week, have fun with your coworkers. So they're good people. Have some fun with. At the same time, be cautious. I wouldn't spend too much time with the negative ones. But make your week count, and don't try and boil the ocean, as they say. On your Monday morning planning sessions, pick 3, maybe 4 things that you're gonna knock out before you start your weekend on Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. That's just some advice, because again, you don't have to dread Mondays. To me, Monday is like any other day, and I don't waste my Sunday worrying about it.
Well, I happen to write a newsletter called Combating the Sunday Scaries, because so many people do that.
Yep.
And I'll tell you one thing I did that changed a lot was I don't do meetings on Fridays anymore. Sometimes I will do business work or things like that to help me set up for the following week. But man, the 4-day work week, I really hope get some traction here in the US, because it does really make a big difference, which is kind of in a way something you can do if you do if you make meetings Monday free, right? In a way, you're kind of setting yourself up for a 4-ish day work week with one like nice planning. Get through the inbox. Don't schedule a live recording at 10 a.m. in the morning on Mondays, maybe, but we get it done around here. And so I think a lot of this, I feel like comes down to like being very intentional and setting boundaries around your time and your tasks to make Mondays less daunting. Right, Rich?
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And listen, it's okay to say no periodically. We no is not, we don't want to be known as saying no as the first word in our vocabulary to a request. However, there's certain weeks you're going to be overloaded. And during those weeks, you may get another request here. Now, if it's 5 minutes, that's one thing. But if it's another 3-hour project task analysis on your already overloaded week, which means you're going to be working Saturdays and Sundays, if you say yes to the person, it is okay to say no. Be delicate with a person. Let the person know that unfortunately, I can't work with it this week. Can it wait till next Tuesday? It's okay to do. Is the company going to go bankrupt if we don't address this until next Tuesday morning?
I think I have lots of little things to tie together, because this is also a very interesting timed conversation. This month is National Wellness Month. And I'm a big fan of like overall you're like looking at each part of what contributes to our overall well-being. And like I mentioned earlier, career is a significant part of that we don't necessarily pay attention to. And boundaries are personally and professionally are something I think we all put compromise on too much. And no is a very powerful word that will actually take you places if you learn it. But you also don't necessarily have to like blanketly say yes or no. If this situation that Rich is bringing up, for instance, came into play, ask questions. Be curious before just saying yes or before saying no. And not right now is also a nice in the middle thing. But the sky is probably not going to fall on Chicken Little if you don't do this thing by noon on Friday, except for that you're going to tear your hair out if you overpromise and underdeliver. So be realistic and be honest and about it. And then also even going back to something else we talked about is maybe you delegate.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a period in my career, I worked till 8 p.m. every single night. I was leaving the office 7:30 if I was lucky, typically 7:45, even on Fridays. And looking back, it's like, wow, my kids were young. Probably should have done a better job of managing my time. I would tell you, honestly, that was a period where I couldn't say no. And I was just taking on more, and it meant working till 8 o'clock in the office every night.
Yeah. And we go through seasons, I think, where you choose not to say no, because you can, but you make the choice because you know what ramifications it will have, and that's conscious. And we go through seasons where you consciously choose to not say no to things because of whatever's happening, but you don't want to live in that one season forever, because you'll get burnout. And then these are also the lessons that like Rich and I are telling you now, because we learned them the hard way, because I did the same thing in my mid-20s. I mean, I was working it was kind of ridiculous. It was the Lowe's account. It was a show up at work at 7 a.m. This was before cell phones. So I'd have a message on my landline from my boss, who had a thick Boston accent, asking me whether or not I was working banker's hours. And I wasn't in my office at 7 a.m. because I had been in there at 9 p.m. the night before. And yeah, I got fried pretty fast. That said, it did, for a short period of time, I did it, and it did take my career places. But in hindsight, at what expense?
Absolutely. I worked a ton of hours, traveled a ton. I typically had the Western U.S. or at least the Southwest U.S. and occasionally nationwide. And there was a time I was on the Circuit City crew, and we announced liquidation in 2009. Mm-hmm. Job market was horrible, and I was here in Goochland, Virginia, which is Central Virginia, and I got a great job offer and took it. It was in southwestern Michigan. With a terrific organization. It was unbelievable. But my wife and kids stayed behind because the kids were in a great school situation. But me going to Michigan, I missed the last year and a half of my daughter's high school education. Her senior year and the few months before that, I was living in Michigan. She was going to school at our home in Virginia. So I missed it. So looking back, wow, I worked all those years so late, and Saturdays, I feel like I mismanaged my time. So I would also say, work smarter, plan your day, and look. Of course, each of us want to be servant leaders. We want to keep everybody around us going. We want to provide the resources. We don't want anybody to stop their work or slow down their work because of us, of course. But just manage your time a little bit better. So saying no to maybe one or two conference calls a month because you're so backlogged, it's okay.
And also because what actually gets done in meetings. But also, I'm going to point out, so make it in the effort to make Mondays feel like a hot date, Rich has given us about a dozen little tiny tips here. And what I'm going to say is it consolidates around this idea of like make your week count. To me means be very intentional and deliberate with your time. And maybe one of those is making Mondays meeting free and getting your work done and wrapped by Friday so that you actually have 2 full days off. And on Sunday afternoons, you're not worried about Monday because you can address it all, right? See how that just those simple things changes the whole ecosystem. And what I'm going to tell you is if you work smarter instead of harder and you set boundaries, you will actually create a team environment where everyone thrives more and is more fulfilled, and not only more engaged, but fulfilled, because they also see that they can do the same. And you set an expectation and an example for them that creates a healthy ecosystem for them as well. So again, we're into this trickle down situation where if you're in a leadership position, you can actually control the culture within your team, even if the bigger picture of the environment is a little untenable. Simply by taking some of these tips and stacking them, right? We all love James Clear and Atomic Habits. Stacking these small things that now, hey, even if Monday ain't going to be a hot date, at least you don't have to dread it.
There you go.
Love it. Oh, all right, Rich. Couple things. Let's do a couple shameless plugs again. I want to remind everybody about your 2 books and where they get them, because as you can all hear, if you like consuming the madness in my head, you're going to like the madness in Rich's head. We share it. And he has an extra perspective of having been in a large HR environment. So I really like how you bring this information to people. So tell everybody about your books again and where they can find them.
Sure. Career Trust is the first book. And the second book is Unleashing Your Career. And both can be found on Amazon.
Yay. And Rich was nice enough to send me Career Trust. I highly, highly recommend, because it's these little bits, which is so cool. You could just start off your Monday for a whole year by reading these little bits, and it can just reframe everything. And then you'll listen to this, you'll listen to No More Mondays, and boom, Monday is a hot date. The 2 of us are going to take the world by storm. And as we wrap things up, I have to thank you for being here with me on a Monday morning, being willing to be, live on the airwaves and sharing your wisdom and your experience and some vulnerable pieces of it with everybody, because I think it's really important to helping people rethink what careers could look like versus what we think they should. So I appreciate this. And thank you so much for being here, Rich.
It's been great. It's been my privilege.
Pick up his books. Follow both of us here on LinkedIn if you're listening. And don't forget, whether you're listening live on LinkedIn or post-live recording, we come at you live every week with great stories and advice on how you can live and work brilliantly. Never-ending opinions right here, everybody. Follow Rich and I here on LinkedIn. If you're listening on the airwaves post-live, come on over here and follow along with us. Rich Salon, the HR guy, thank you again so much for joining me today. I look forward to continuing to follow your journey, hearing more about the work you're doing, and probably finding more ways for us to work together in our mutual love of the No More Mondays movement.
Happy to.
Until next week, everybody have a fantastic week. It is National Wellness Month, so use this as a way to focus on yourself, focus on your career well-being. For all of you listening, remember, we are live here on LinkedIn every Monday morning at 10:15 Mountain, noon 15 Eastern, and you can get the playbacks wherever you like to get your podcast. Just look for No More Mondays or head on over to nomoremondays.info for all the details from today, past shows, and upcoming. We will see you next week when we kick off your Monday with another episode of No More Mondays Live.